out there are tools that can help kids and teenagers heal. Remember when we said our brains are wired for healing? They are. Our brains are designed to respond in predictable ways when we connect with others on a deep level and when we feel seen. In fact, the research shows that we aren't powerless at all. We aren't powerless at all. For instance, research on the neuroscience of attachment shows us that the brain can learn a new attachment pattern because of the process of neuroplasticity. The brain has the ability to rewire and reorganize itself. Another helpful discovery is that a secure attachment with an adult can not only help heal and rewire the brain from a past insecure attachment, but it can also help decrease the risk for despair and suicidal thoughts in adolescence. Whether you are a parent of a preschooler, elementary-aged kid, teenager, or young adult, you can begin habits now that will nurture emotionally healthy development and create resilience against despair when they are older. If you know anyone at all who is facing any level of despair, there are practical things you can do right now to intervene and begin the process of healing. These are tools that will help you make significant connections that lead to change. Heartlifters, I am so excited today to welcome Dr. Chinwe Williams, co-author of the book Seen: Healing Despair and Anxiety in Kids and Teens Through the Power of Connection. Dr. Chinwe co-authored this book with Will Hutcherson, and I believe he'll be on our show at a later date, and I can't wait. So today, let's welcome Chinwe. Oh, I'm so excited, Chinwe, to have you here. Thank you for saying yes.
Oh, of course, Janell. Thank you so much for having me. I always think that it's like fun to do podcasts, but it's always more enjoyable when I'm doing them with a fellow therapist. So yay.
I know I could talk to you about a million things, but I'm going to have to just be so focused, which is so hard for me because your new book, Seen, I've already introduced that, is phenomenal. You co-wrote it with Will Hutcherson, and hopefully Will be on the show as well. But you're preceding him, and so I just can't wait to hear what was behind the coming of this book. If you maybe would share that right off the get-go here.
Yes.
How did Seen, number one, the title took my breath away. It is absolutely what my whole mission in the 7th decade of my life is about. Helping parents understand secure attachment, and understand faith and mental health integrated. So welcome. And if you would just tell us how you brought this amazing 2-hour read to us.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. So as your audience members already know, I'm a mental health therapist. First of all, I'm a mom, I'm a wife.
4 children.
3, yeah.
3.
And an 18-year-old. So I know a lot about teenagers just from personal experience.
Yeah.
And professionally, I was a high school counselor for 5 years.
Bless you.
You. And prior to that time and following that time, I worked with families. So I actually always believe that there's not a whole lot you can do. And this is just me being transparent.
I don't please be transparent.
You could be the best expert in the world. You can be the best helper in the world with all the amazing skills. But if you're working one-on-one with the child or the teenager without including the system, which is the parents, the grandparents, the adult caregivers, the coaches, the teachers, the neighbors.
Neighbors. Oh, neighbors for sure.
Yes. Ministry leaders. I have I can't tell you how many
Oh my
times
gosh.
I've had youth pastors drop off teenagers at my office door, like, help with the parents' permission.
Oh,
But that
oh,
relationship is so beautiful and so critical in addition to the
it is.
relationships that kids have in the household. So
Mm,
all the people that encompass that child's life, the sphere of influence, is so important. And that's one thing I learned as a school counselor, is that we can do what we can do to make the connections in the therapy room,
yeah.
and we can do really good work there, but we
Yep.
have to bring in the primary caregivers so they can
Mhm.
also feel equipped, because they have a tremendous amount of influence on a child
Mhm.
and a
Oh,
teen's life. Yeah. So
without a
so
doubt.
we wrote the book Scene because you know this all too well. There has been a staggering, in my
Mhm.
opinion,
It is staggering.
rise, yes, in children and teenagers who have been experiencing not just depression, but high levels of anxiety. Anxiety is normal. We all
Mhm.
experience stress, but when it gets to the level that it's impacting your everyday functioning,
Yeah.
that's that's a problem, and that's what we've been seeing in kids and teenagers. And of course, this is even prior to the pandemic. The pandemic has just made things much worse.
Yeah.
But even prior to the pandemic, when I was a school counselor, I was, hearing stories of teenagers who are conscientious and
Mhm.
thoughtful and excellent students, and just wonderful teammates. They often play sports, and
Sure.
they
High functioning.
struggled. High
High
functioning, high,
functioning.
that is the
Yep.
word, high
It
functioning.
is. Hmm.
And oftentimes they felt really, really gripped with anxiety. And so we know that all the mental health stats show that children and teenagers and young adults are experiencing the highest rates of anxiety and depression out of any demographic.
Yeah.
And so
It's
this
sobering.
this book was begging to be written, right?
It was. And I'm so
Um,
happy that you said yes to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so my co-writer and dear friend now, Will Hutcherson, is a youth
Oh.
pastor out of Florida. He's a parent himself. He's a next gen pastor, so he
Mm.
talks to teenagers nearly every day, sometimes across the country. He travels and does assemblies. So he's on
Yes,
the
with his Curate Hope. And did want to mention Will's Curate Hope nonprofit because I spent a long time just looking. It's something that I just started a nonprofit too, but it's in my heart. I'm like, yes,
yes.
yes, yes. So
Yes, he's
yes,
got, and that I would say is the blueprint. It's doing so well, and he just has a heart of gold. And yes, Curate Hope was formed simply with the mission to reduce high suicide rates among teenagers. So
unbelievable.
that's the ugly thing that we never really want to
Mhm.
talk about,
No,
especially in church settings,
we
is that
don't.
our kids are struggling so much so
Mhm.
that many of them are considering taking their own lives, which is
Yeah,
so
and they are.
heartbreaking.
Many
Yeah,
of them
yeah,
are.
they
Or
are.
going into either, and not to broaden the subject, but cutting seems to
Yes,
be on rise again. Vaping, obviously,
yes,
just lots of marijuana use. There's just
yes.
lots of numbing going on as well.
100%, which is a way to cope. And the word maladaptively, we know that in the mental health field, but that just means a negative way. Like, coping is just coping, is a way
Right.
that we are able to deal with our life circumstances. But
Mhm.
coping can be positive, such as going on
Mhm.
a run or talking to a friend or setting proper boundaries. And then coping can also be over time really harmful, such as the
Yeah.
ways that you mentioned that our teenagers use to be able to numb all of the intense
Mhm.
emotions that they're experiencing. So
Yeah.
yes,
Just hyper arousal, right? Just hyper
yes,
craziness. Yeah.
100%.
Not to get you off topic about the book here for a second, though, Chinwe, I really did want to pick your brain a little bit about social media.
Yeah.
And I have, when you talk about you have to heal a system. That is
Hmm.
where my work has taken me in the last 12 years since getting my master's in my 50s.
That's
You
awesome.
know,
I love
I
it. I love
whoa,
it. We need you, Janelle. We
whoa,
need you.
it's like,
Congratulations and thank you.
I gotta help. Okay, PhD maybe, we'll see. But this onset, I feel sometimes like I'm in my 80s or 90s when I'm talking, I didn't raise my children with social media. It was Facebook was just happening when my firstborn, who's now 35, was going off to college.
Yes.
And so, here we now live under these social goggles, right? I am just really wanted to hear your opinion because I work in family systems. I can't just see one person in a family. I have found out that after 12 years of seeing just one person, it's like, no. I am a family system girl. We got to do it. Now I see grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and just try to heal family system, which is really difficult, but it's very effective.
Yes.
But I wonder, they're always saying, where is this coming from? Why is this happening? Why is my daughter cutting herself? Why? And I see a strong influence from TikTok, particularly, not to knock a social media, not to knock anything. I love social media. I do it. I think it has a great power, but is it just this increased influx of information constant? What is your heart on that?
100%. 100%.
Okay. I'm glad to know I'm not leading people astray.
Yes. So let me lead with this. It's a complicated set of factors. Behavioral scientists and researchers and clinicians are still trying to sort of wrap our heads around what came first, what has the most influence. But we know that all of these things that are introduced to our young people play a role. And so let me say, before we jump into social media, which I'm so glad you brought up,
okay,
one of the factors pre-pandemic that impacted high levels of anxiety and despair are high academic expectations.
Oh, yes.
And pressures to
Please.
succeed. But social media plays a role in that as well, because what is the definition of success? Well, it depends on the child that you talk to, and it depends on their family and what they define and what they determine to be successful, be it, the way that you look. For a lot of young girls, appearance is a big deal, and that's part of development. That's not abnormal. But what has been introduced here lately is the images that are constantly streaming on various forms of media. Instagram, kids aren't using Facebook as much, but prior, when I was a high school counselor, they were.
Yes.
And TikTok especially. And there's this pressure to be, it used to be called the Justin Bieber effect years ago when I was
yes.
He was discovered, for those of you who, I'm sure everybody knows Justin Bieber, but for those of you who don't know how he got on the world stage, he started doing YouTube videos.
Oh, yes.
Right? And he was discovered because he's so uber talented. He could play instruments. He could sing. He was super cute. Hello.
Super cute. Yes.
And so what happened around that time with the advent of American Idol and now The Voice, kids and teenagers are like, wow, if I put myself out there, I could possibly be famous.
Be a famous star. Yes.
And for
Starlight.
And then the Kardashians, or that the Hiltons, kids are influenced by influencers, right?
Oh, 1,000%.
But the problem is
not just kids.
Not just hello. Thank you.
We're talking about kids today.
Right. Don't get me started on the glamour magazines.
I'm gonna keep you right here.
Exactly. We're all influenced. That's why marketing is there's a big budget for marketing and promotion, right? And TV ads.
Yeah.
But kids and teens are at particular developmental stages where that influence is so heightened.
Yeah.
And with the advent of social media, we're just we're uber connected.
We are.
And for teens, especially, they compare themselves.
Oh, yeah.
They compare themselves to their peers, which isn't different. It's always been that way since the start of history. But again, with that pressure to keep up, that pressure to be successful, that pressure to look a certain way, that pressure to have so many likes. So you and I use social media. That's the way that we get information about mental health out there to the world, right?
It is very true, without a doubt.
It's so helpful. But if I get 30 likes versus 13, I'm putting my phone down and cooking dinner. I'm like, I got things to do. I'm
I
getting
got
ready
things
for
to do. That
retirement.
laundry ain't going to do itself.
I got to sweep a floor or help somebody with their depression.
Sweep
Like,
the floor or help somebody. That's,
or have somebody do
boy,
it.
that is life for us.
Or
Isn't
I've got
it?
to schedule it, but with COVID, it's been me, right?
Yes, that really is very telling.
Right?
I'm going to
So
go
as
cook a meal, or I'm going to go help this family system through a
right?
trauma. I'm sorry.
Hello.
Focus.
You said it. No, it's being realistic, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so we have other things that are vying for our attention
Yes, but they
that are
don't.
important, and our
Mm-hmm.
kids, their focus is those peer connections, right? And
Right.
so they do measure their self-worth by what they
Mhm.
post and how many people view it and how many people like it, and it's about instant validation, and I think that's the problem with social media.
The validation part. Yes, yes. I just had Pastor Rob Singleton on in his book Overliked, which it was
Mm.
really a good discussion from a pastoral perspective. So I love having the therapist and the mom and the school counselor perspective here with you. So what
Mhm.
on earth? I mean, this book scene, I'm telling you, you're right. It's a 2-hour read. None of my books are. So I love saying that this is a 2-hour read. Parents, caregivers, coaches, pastors, particularly, man, I am really pounding the table for pastors and pastoral staffs to integrate faith and mental health. But something in the book that you all talk about that I think is the affect, perhaps,
Mhm.
of all this social media intake, comparison, all of those things. The
Mhm.
affect of it is despair.
Correct.
It's in your title. And I think,
Mhm.
Chinwe, that's what got me, because there's a million thousand resources on anxiety and depression, and not a million on suicide. But this word despair is
Mhm.
really what I want to bring to the table
Mm.
today. If you would
Yes.
help us understand, because I see it as a
Mhm.
therapist,
Yes.
but I don't think parents,
Mm.
caregivers, whatever, are really recognizing or even understanding what this problem of despair is. If you could just help us.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I want to highlight that the reason Will and I chose to focus on the word despair
Good.
rather than the word depression
Yes.
is in a lot of ways based on our previous discussion. We are so connected.
Mhm.
Everyone, not just kids and teenagers, are going to the internet to self-diagnose. They are they're
Yes.
listening to their peers, maybe even their parents talk about, I am so depressed, or I have
Mhm.
this trauma. And those are words, as you and I know, that are very clinical. There's a
They are.
very specific set of criteria that
Right.
one has to meet in order to be diagnosed with depression or trauma. But our kids, and I think in a
Yeah.
lot of ways, our society uses the terminology very loosely. So we didn't want to focus on depression per se.
Hmm.
Despair, quite
Mm.
simply, is a state of being. You actually don't have to be diagnosed with depression or even meet, half of the criteria for depression to have despair. Many of us have
Mm.
experienced a level of despair. And here's the simple definition I want to leave with your audience.
Good.
Despair is simply the absence of hope.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yes, the complete loss or absence of hope. That is the very best definition that I can offer. Yes, I can go through
Mm.
lots of symptoms, but what
Hmm.
I want to offer your listeners now is just remembrance. Like, have you ever had a loss of a family member, of
Mm.
a pet, a separation from a friend, a loved one, the loss of an ideal? Think about what we've experienced in the
Yes.
last 2 years. We've lost loved ones. We've lost a sense of freedom, which we're hearing a lot about, right? People are really
Oh,
upset with
yes.
that,
Oh,
right?
yes. For the first time in our generation, probably a real, true, we think, loss of freedom, right?
Loss of freedom, which, right,
Hmm.
other people globally, people experience that
Yes,
like
they do.
historically, yes, but in America, that feels so scary to
It
us.
does.
And what I've also seen as a therapist, and I know you have as well, is a loss of hope. And in
Hmm.
that moment, and we talk a lot about it in the book, Some philosopher calls it the dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
There's a there's
Mm-hmm.
a there's a point of desperation. There's a point
Mm-hmm.
of hopelessness
Mm-hmm.
and helplessness. And then this is the piece that I want to add: disconnection.
There it is.
So
Yeah.
so again, it's not
And
about having
disconnection from self,
yes,
it's like a disembodiment. It's like,
and yes,
I don't feel anything. That's what I
anything.
hear a lot of. I don't, especially from the teens, I just
Yes,
don't feel anything.
yes. And can you
Like,
imagine just
whoa.
how scary that
Well, I
is?
can actually.
Yeah,
I have felt it
because
myself.
you've experienced
I
that,
have.
and
Yeah.
guess what? I have too. So
Yeah, I'm
just to
sure.
not to
Mhm.
we can go real deep in the waters, but I just want to
Mhm.
share
Please
with
do.
your audience, those of you who have had young children that depended on you.
Mhm.
This may resonate, and for those of you who haven't had this experience, you might be able to imagine what this is like. But
Mhm.
working in the trauma world, I have had mothers say to
Mhm.
me, I have been in bed listening to my child cry in the next
Mm.
room, but filled with such utter despair, I
Mhm.
couldn't even get out of bed to check
Yes.
on my child. And some of us can't even imagine that, right? No
Yeah.
matter what
Okay.
we're
Right.
experiencing, no matter
Mhm.
what we're doing, we're going
Nobody
to
would
like,
do that.
no, I'm going to jump out of that bed and feed my child or change my child's diaper or comfort my child.
Yes.
And by the way, the mothers fed their kids, but if they knew that the kids were fed and changed and the
Mhm.
kid just wanted comfort or attention,
Right.
in their depression or despair or postpartum or whatever you want to call
Mhm.
it, they
Mhm.
weren't able to meet that need because they were
Isolation.
disconnected from themselves
Yes, exactly.
and
And
the
how do
people
you
around
get
them.
there? Yeah, yeah. Like how does that happen outside of, we're not talking about postpartum depression here. We're just talking about normal life. And I think, Chinwe, if I'm accurate, women of faith would never admit that.
No,
They would
no,
never go to their prayer groups or go to get help because there would be, and maybe this is, I hope and pray this is in transformative experiences happening where you can say that without being shamed or being scriptured or being, and I love, this is what I love and seeing too,
mhm,
both you and Will tell real true stories of how you've messed up, and I love Will's story about Tyler. So you guys just have to get the book, download it on Kindle. I did it this
please.
morning again, and I have the hard copy, but I want it on Kindle. Just of the mistakes that we make,
Yes.
you
Well
know.
intentioned.
Well, I know. Well, is it well meaning or is it just mean? I've been trying to answer that question for a long time.
Depends on the situation,
Depends
right?
on the situation. But, well intentioned, we just don't know what to do. Like the non-therapist, the non-mental health trained or whatever, parents just don't know what to do. They
They
only
don't.
know what they know, but that's why you're here. And
Yes.
that's why we're doing this, to increase and
Yeah.
empower everyone to be able
Yes.
to take hold of their mental and emotional health so that they can be spiritually healthy.
Oh, 100%. And what's been so, thank you. That was so beautifully stated, Janelle. And I think
Mm.
we have to go there because you're
We
right.
have to.
The moms in the moms groups that I've
Yeah.
been a part of over the
Mm-hmm.
years in ministry groups, we don't talk enough about this. And what's been beautiful to see, especially in 2020 when we were kind of locked down, is that the church, the global church, the local church, we are having more conversations
We
about
are.
mental health awareness as well as
Yes.
treatment.
Yes.
It's still not enough because what I
Mm-hmm.
find, even behind closed doors, and just not self disclosure, but
Mm-hmm.
I talk about this quite a bit actually. My practice consists of primarily Christians and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Christians in leadership.
Okay. I'm so
Some
happy. That makes my
form
heart
of leadership.
so happy.
Yes, and I thank God every day for the
Mm.
honor and privilege. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea, Lord. All right, Holy Spirit, lead.
Yes.
Holy
Yes.
Spirit, activate.
Yeah.
Holy Spirit, activate.
Activate.
Right?
I love
Because
that. Yes.
because here's the truth. They know about more about Scripture than I do.
Without a doubt.
because they went to seminary, they
Yep.
know the word, and yet they're still feeling this. So why is that? And I think part of the reason every situation is unique
Hmm.
is that there still lies a heavy, heavy stigma among the Christian community about mental health. There's
I
still
agree.
lies. There's some skepticism. I don't think
Hmm.
many pastors fully understand it. Therefore, they don't feel very equipped. And that's another reason
Right.
we wrote this book, because our young
Yes.
people need us to have these conversations and
Oh,
know the
goodness.
simplest ways to help.
Oh my goodness. And you say it so beautifully in the book. You write, relational connection can help the brain repair itself. It
Yes.
takes intentional steps in love and empathy. And Chinwe, I cannot let you go. I wrote this question in red. If you can see it, I was like, I believe like what you guys write so much. And I believe this is the right time to bring this into the conversation about what does
Mm.
empathy have to do with this
Mhm.
subject matter? You write a lot about
Mhm. Mhm.
empathy in this 2-hour read scene. I love saying that.
Wow.
What
Yes.
is it? What is it? Like, I don't,
Mhm.
I've talked about it here.
Mhm.
We talk about it in our online community, but I
Mhm.
wanted to really ask you, why was that important?
Yes.
What the
Thank
heck
you.
does that have to do? And how
Mhm.
do we get that
Yeah.
as parents and caregivers and teachers and pastors and staffs?
Yeah. Such a good question. And empathy is more than just being a positive person.
Mhm.
And expressing or demonstrating empathy is much more than being a kind person. So, empathy, first of all, God is so great and amazing, and in his profound wisdom, all knowingness, created our brains, wired our brains for relationship.
He
And
did.
so when there's a disconnection between us and other people,
Mm,
us and ourselves, God has given us empathy, this
mm,
ability to be able to, and this is really important, Janelle, when people ask, how do I do this? How do I do this?
mhm,
This ability to not just put yourself in someone else's shoes,
mhm,
you have to know what it's like to walk
mm.
as them in their shoes.
Yes.
Do you
Oh, it's
see the difference?
beautiful. Say it again, would you please? Like with
Yes.
your
Yes.
brilliance.
Yes. So empathy is not being
Empathy.
able to see a situation like how you would handle it. It's
Thank
not
you.
how you would walk in their shoes. It's understanding how they are walking in their shoes. And
That's
to
it.
be and to be able to do that, that requires a few things. And we break
Tell
down the
us.
steps, but
Yeah.
the first thing is to show up. The first thing is just to be present. It's just to be present and to say, I'm here. And in the busyness, and you talk a lot about this, Janelle, let me give you a shout out. I
Oh,
love
you're
your
so kind.
entire mission. Of
Oh.
course, I'm going to prepare for this, for our conversation.
Hmm.
And I went through, I didn't listen to all of the messages in its entirety,
Of
but
course
what I
not.
loved about your entire mission is that you focus on the hurriedness of our society
Mm-hmm.
and how to live an unhurried life. And
Yikes.
so
It's a
if
challenge, man.
it is a challenge,
I've been
because
challenged with it since the day I was born, probably. I don't know,
which
but
is why it's your mission.
it is,
Which
because
is
I
why.
do know, like what you're saying. I just want to, I think it links very much with the fact that we can't put ourselves in someone else's shoes because we have too much to do, or we have too much to accomplish. And we're doing that because we need validation, because we don't have
Mhm.
secure attachment and healthy identity. It's so layered.
Yes. Yes.
But that is brilliant
Yeah.
to be able to say, it's not how I would walk in those shoes. Chinwe, I have been trying to find a way to explain this, and you have just given me the greatest gift of all. Start right here at the beginning of the year to be able to, even put a pair of the child's shoes out, in a
Mm.
visual lesson,
Oh,
and
huge.
say, put those. You can't, number one, because it's not your size. But I mean,
Look at that. Yes.
we're so quick
Yes.
this is what I notice in family systems therapy. When I have the whole family together, we're so quick to just shout out what we would do. Or even as a believer, shout out what Jesus would do.
Yep.
But it's like to take that moment of pause, and this is how you grow empathy. You start to, I think empathy and active listening go together.
Absolutely.
And listening between the lines so that you as the parent, caregiver, teacher, etc., can go, this is not about me.
Yes.
This is not. I don't know how many times I said that over the holidays with just the whole fam, like, wait a minute, this isn't about me. So just don't start shouting out some external wisdom that you think is brilliant. Shut up. Sorry. I know that's not, I told my kids never say that. Your thoughts.
You're 100% spot on. And that is actually, it seems easy to say show up and pause and put the phone down. But Will and I make the point that these things are simple and powerful, but they're not always easy because we aren't, we want to, walk and live like Jesus, but we aren't Jesus, right?
Yeah, but we're fixers. We're fixers. I think even on the level, I'm not a grandparent yet, but I believe, that it's so easy just to go, well, that's not how it was in my day. And this is that and the other, but it's like, talk to me.
Yes. Let me know
Tell
how you see this situation.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And what's interesting, Janell, is that tell me if you've noticed this too in your conversations with people. It's just a human thing. Like when we talk to our young kids, so I have a 6-year-old and I have a 10-year-old. If I'm honest, my 10-year-old who's on the autism spectrum, I give a lot of leeway. Like I understand that there are limitations. God has brought him so far. We are so grateful to what God is doing to this day. He's speaking more. And there's still some limitations. And so my husband and I, when things happen, we're like, okay, well, we understand he has a disability. He has a limitation. Now my 6-year-old, now he knows better. Noah, your name is Noah. I need you to live up to Noah, the leadership of Noah, right? But he's 6, right? So what is it? He's incredibly smart. He's loving. He's patient, right? And then there are moments when he has meltdowns. So what is it about us that we as parents and grandparents and caregivers look at a 6 and an 8 and a 10-year-old and we expect them to regulate their emotions like this?
Well, to even say regulate your emotions, I think that's what we mean. We're so inept, as parents. We just don't talk about how to do that. The emotional intelligence teaching. It's happening more and more. Like you said, Will's doing things, you're doing things. We're all trying to do our part to raise.
You're doing things.
We are trying the emotional intelligence of all human beings. So what do we do? I want to value your time, Chinwe. Oh my gosh, I just pray that I can have you back here to just.
I would love to be back. I'd love to meet in person somewhere.
Oh, please. I'd love to work together. That would be amazing. So, practical tips. The book is full of them. So I just will say you must get seen, parents. This is 2022 is a year to raise your emotional intelligence and your own emotional health. Because as you say in the book, example is everything.
Yes.
What I say all the time. You have to lead by example. So when your children see you growing emotionally and becoming more emotionally healthy, it's going to have huge dividends on your family legacy. But a couple things we've talked about: how to increase our empathy. That would be to step back, put down our phones, detach in the right ways from all the hyperconnection. Anything else, just today in a moment of like those people who might be in despair.
Yes.
Who might not be able to get out of bed. This is a layered, deep question. And I usually hate this question, so I can't believe I'm asking you. I'll answer this in 5 seconds. But just, offer
Yeah.
some level of hope for this despair.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is our sort of like tagline, and then I'm gonna go a little bit into what you just said. Our tagline is this: for any child or teenager that you're caring for who is exhibiting signs of
Mhm.
distress, just that word distress. It could be anxiety, it can be
Mhm.
despair, it can be dis-ease, discomfort.
Yeah, dis-ease.
Know that God has given you the tools
Mm.
to help with their healing. It's not that we're going to heal anything. Jesus heals, right? But
Mm-hmm.
we are influencers and we've been
We are.
given the tools to help encourage the brain towards healing. So this is our
Mm-hmm.
tagline. When we show up as caregivers, our kids feel loved.
Oh.
Okay. When we see them, which everything
Mm-hmm.
requires the pause, everything
Does.
requires putting this down,
Slowing
putting
down.
away, slowing down, making sure that you're undistracted. In the car is a beautiful time.
Mm-hmm.
Walking with boys, so you're next to them as opposed to across from them.
Yes.
I have seen wonderful things
Mm.
happen as a school counselor walking around the track with my
Oh, I love
guys.
that.
They open up so much freely, so much more
Relaxed.
freely. They're relaxed, they're comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And then this motion, Janelle, which you know from
Yeah,
neurobiology, helps to calm the brain,
it
the
does.
walking.
Brings that
So
sympathetic nervous. Yeah.
get outside, go fishing, figure out what it is that
Mm-hmm.
your kid or the child that you're leading enjoys. Do those things. A lot of times we want to do the things that make us feel comfortable. I'm not even that old, but I got old knees. So when my 6-year old's like, vroom, let's do the car thing, I'm like, Jesus, do I have to? Do I have to? And then I put down I'm looking at it right now, my pillow and uh, under my knees because that's what my
Mm.
child needs me. That's what helps him to feel seen. So I show
Same.
up
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm doing the things that he wants to do. And for your
Mm-hmm.
daughter, that might look the same or different.
Mm-hmm.
When we listen,
Mm-hmm.
so listen uninterrupted, without interrupting, listen
That's it.
without judgment,
That's it.
listen without, you said this a few minutes ago, Janelle, not thinking back to the way that you were raised or the way
Mm-hmm.
things have always been done,
Yeah.
but how they're experiencing this new, crazy,
Mm-hmm.
hectic, beautiful in some cases, scary in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
cases world, especially through social media.
Mm-hmm.
So we may need to pick up the TikTok, not do the
Mm-hmm.
TikTok if
That's
you're not
exactly right. Be
comfortable.
informed.
Learn, know what it
That's
is that they're
exactly.
into and
Do
what they
not have
get.
your head in the sand.
Thank you. Know
Mm-hmm.
what your child is
Don't
doing
be
and
afraid of it.
don't be afraid. And the magical questions with technology, they
Mm-hmm.
say, is to say, teach me that.
Yeah.
Kids are like, yes.
Yes, I know.
So are we able to be students as we are
Mhm.
teachers, as parents,
Instead of
right?
fear mongers, I just see that a lot, I guess. And tell me, please affirm me or correct me, but I feel like it does start with being unhurried.
Mm,
It does start with making sure, please, that you eat just at least one meal together,
oh,
or
yes.
have some form of familial family connection, not
100%.
just running out the door to all of that. That's an old conversation, but it's so relevant. Um,
Extremely,
it's so
extremely.
relevant,
Yes.
but
Yes.
also just like you just said, I want to leave with this.
Hmm.
Tell me what you're thinking. Like,
Hmm.
help the 6-year-old, the 8-year-old, the 3-year-old, the 20-year-old, the 35-year-old, help them go, well, listen, I know what I think,
Mm,
but I need you to tell me what you're thinking.
that's it.
So
That's
today
it.
you saw this on TikTok, you heard this in school, you saw this relationship, you saw this happening, you saw this on The Simpsons. Yesterday I had a
Hmm.
family system situation and I was like, oh, please tell me that didn't really happen. And they're like, oh, it really did. And I'm like, okay, taking my head out of the sand, and I'm like, so sit those 3 boys down and go, what was that about?
Hmm.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Not just cut the TV off and say, no more Simpsons.
Yeah.
That's
That's
just my
it.
feeling, like making it safe where they're
Yes.
seen, where they
Yes.
have a voice, where
Yes.
they're heard, and where you can have a family discussion about these things that are going on
Yes.
and say, I'm here if you have any questions.
I'm here if you have any questions, and you're spot on. And I would just only add one more thing.
Good.
How did that make you feel?
Yes.
How did that make you feel? And if you have a teenager, you're often going to get, I don't know. They know because they tell me
Yeah.
behind closed doors in the therapy room. But by you asking over and over again, it's always consistency
Mhm.
over time when it comes to raising kids. It's them knowing that you actually care and
That's
that
right.
their feelings matter, but that can't be a one-off thing. So that's where we do encourage parents. You're gonna fail, you're gonna make
Oh yeah.
mistakes. I do it all the time, even with all of the
Me
knowledge,
too. Me
right?
too.
Because I'm human, I get frustrated. I'm like,
Oh
"Ah,
yeah.
just do what I say," right?
Exactly. The
Depending
first
on
time
what,
I say it.
yeah, depending on what I have going on and the level
Mhm.
of,
Yeah.
of
Stress
stress
and distress in your life.
that
Yeah.
I'm under or that my clients are under,
That's,
right? If
oh,
I've got a
yes,
full 8 clients, I'm going to be a different mommy at the end of the
you
day.
are. I don't know
So
how you're
big,
doing it, but I will be praying.
thank you. I love you. So offer yourself grace. Mistakes are going to happen, but keep showing up. How
Keep
did that
showing
make
up.
you feel? I would feel this way. What about you? Well, I don't know, mom. The younger they are, they're going to pick up on
Hmm.
my kids are using feeling words because I started pretty early, but it's never too late. It's
Oh,
never too
no.
late. Yeah.
And
And then
today's the day.
today's the day. And then the last two that I want to mention, I think it's so important, is when we speak life. So there is a
Mm.
place to say that to them that in your despair, where you can't see past that dark tunnel and you can't imagine how God is going to bring anything good out of this, God is still good and God
Yes.
is still our
Present.
Redeemer. So there's
Yes.
always a place for the truth. So I never want to
Yes.
lose sight of that.
That's right.
It's both, right? It's the
Yep.
spiritual tools
Both and.
and some of the neurobiological clinical tools that we've been
Hmm.
learning and studying.
Oh, yeah.
And then when we speak life, they feel worthy.
They do.
And then finally, to all of your listeners, when we help them to develop grit, which is another word for
Oh,
resilience.
that is a whole chapter building grit. I love that word grit, man. I'm a girl raised
Yes,
in the South. So it's like,
yes. So
talk to us.
folded into that is helping them to fostering in your child a growth mindset. That's still
Yes.
something that
Hmm.
it's so big. For those of you who aren't aware of it, please go look it up. It's
Oh,
so
yeah. We talk a lot
important.
about growth mindsets here. So we'll talk
Oh,
a lot more.
so your
I'll,
audience is like so well informed.
yeah,
And,
we
and,
hope
and
so.
resilience. Yeah. So what that
Yes.
happens when we're not helicoptering as
Hmm.
much,
Yeah.
when we are not the coach, but the
Hmm.
cheerleader,
Yeah.
is that they then feel empowered, which is
Right.
what at the end of the day, that's why
Hmm.
we do this.
It
That's
is.
why we hit them with the word. It's like, it, go do it. But
Yes. Yes.
we have to really follow these steps so they
Mm.
can feel heard and connected with, and that's the way that we connect with them. And then eye contact is the main thing throughout whatever it is that you're
All
saying
those
to
nonverbals. Yeah.
your young children, to your adult child, to your
Hmm.
spouse.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be seen. So look
I
at
do.
them. Look at them. So eye contact actually does something from a neurobiological
Oh, it's
perspective. It
that beam
helps to
gleam.
calm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
got
That beam gleam.
it.
I love it. I just had a few over the holidays with my children across the room where you just connect and you have that
That's it.
look and it's like, oh,
That's it.
that's it. Chinwe, you're remarkable. You're so amazing and wonderful. Thank you so much for giving of your time when you have kiddos at home and you have a million things going on. May you be richly, deeply blessed this year beyond your wildest imagination,
Mm,
with
yeah.
a deep sense of meaning and purpose in what you're doing in your home and outside of your
Mm.
home.
Oh, likewise, my
Many
sister.
blessings. Thank you.
Many blessings to you. Hope to
Thank you.
connect in person.
Oh, I hope so. That would be amazing. Thank you.